A tropical disturbance over Cuba is getting ready to become the fourth tropical storm of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season as it heads towards Florida and the southeastern U.S. This is the National Hurricane Center showing potential tropical cyclone 4 over Cuba, and right now the maximum sustained winds are 30 miles per hour, and it's moving west-northwest at 16 miles per hour, but this is actually expected to become a tropical storm over the next 12 to 24 hours by Saturday afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon, Saturday afternoon, it's near Key West, somewhere like that. That's when it becomes a tropical cyclone, and then it becomes a tropical storm by Saturday night or early Sunday, and then it actually is going towards Florida. It's going to hit somewhere between Fish Creek and probably Tampa, Florida. That's what it looks like right now, at least, and it's supposed to intensify as it moves towards Florida, especially in this Big Bend area. It's where there's some really high sea surface temperatures, at least approaching 90 degrees, and so this could quickly intensify before it makes landfall, probably Sunday night into early Monday, somewhere in Florida, and then it looks like it's going to go off the other side of Florida or exit, kind of land and go back over the water by Monday evening, and then it's going to be either along the coast of the Carolinas or offshore over the next few days after that, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and it actually slows down quite a bit, and it can actually produce a lot of rain over some of these areas, especially Florida, but even other places across the southeastern U.S. And there's actually, besides for the tropical storm warnings, there's actually storm surge expected up to 4 feet between the Suwannee River and even Tampa Bay, Charlotte Harbor, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. And then in further south Florida, there's 1 to 3 feet of storm surge expected right now, and we'll see if that goes up or if it stays the same. And it's also expected to produce a lot of rain. They're showing pretty much 6 to 8 inches, even 8 to 12 inches, kind of in the Tampa Bay area and other places in southwest Florida. Anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of rain, and then a lot more rain. A pretty widespread 8 to 12 inches just off the coast of the Carolinas. So that's what it's showing. And right along the coast, it's showing, 6 to 8 inches in some areas, but, a slight change in the track can make a big difference as to where the heaviest rain is. Right now, they have pretty much a slight risk of flash flooding over the next 5 days from this system across Florida and other places in the southeast. But this could also be upgraded, especially in Florida. I think they probably would add in a moderate risk somewhere along, the west coast of Florida especially, and even they might have to end up adding another moderate risk across, the coastal parts of South Carolina and even in North Carolina. But we'll see what happens with that. But this is going over some really high sea surface temperatures. You have at least the upper 80s across most of the Gulf, but especially as you go to that west coast of Florida, sea surface temperatures in the low 90s. So this, even with a short distance over the water, it could probably intensify pretty quickly. If it had a longer distance over the water, like right now it's over land, so it can't really develop that easily. But as it goes over that water, if it had a longer distance over the water, it could probably become a hurricane. I don't know. It could be a high-end tropical storm, most likely when it makes landfall in Florida. But those sea surface temperatures are pretty high, so it can intensify pretty quickly. And this is kind of what it looks like on the satellite imagery. It's really a disorganized mess of thunderstorms right now, but it's supposed to get more organized, especially once it gets towards Key West, once the center is, over the water. And the spaghetti models kind of show that and it's really showing, over the next 12 hours, still, it's going to be still over Cuba for a while, but then once we go towards tomorrow afternoon, it's going to be starting to organize into at least a tropical depression, then definitely a tropical storm as it starts approaching Florida. It could intensify, to at least 70 miles an hour right before landfall, especially, because this is pretty much going over some of the warmest waters in the Gulf, and then it starts slowing down as it kind of exits Florida, and then it's going to either go just onshore or just offshore the coast. It actually, a lot of the models are actually now really confident that it's going to either be just offshore or on the coast, so it could intensify more if it stays a bit further offshore. If it just stays onshore, then it will probably stay a weaker system, even though you do have that water there, so it could maintain its intensity, but if it goes further offshore, then it will probably re-intensify more. And, a lot of the models are really showing it's going to hit somewhere between, Fish Creek and Tampa. That's pretty much what it looks like the landfall location in Florida is going to be, but that could still change. That's what it looks like right now. And then the intensity, it's showing, a lot of the models are showing a mid to high end tropical storm. I think that since the water temperatures are pretty high, this could definitely be, 50 knots to 60 miles an hour, at least a 60 to 70 mile an hour tropical storm is what I think is possible, but, we'll have to see how fast it's able to organize once it gets over the water, and the track difference also, because if it stays offshore longer before hitting Florida, then it has more time to intensify a lot more than if it just were to kind of hit like south of Tampa, versus if it hits further north, then it's going to have a lot more time over the water. So, there's uncertainty with that, but then a lot of the models are showing it stays kind of a low-end tropical storm. After that, like some of the models are showing that it could, intensify into a low-end hurricane. But then a lot of the models are showing a low-end tropical storm after landfall, and then it could start coming back up if it stays offshore, instead of kind of going inland more so along the Carolinas. We'll see. And, a lot of the ensembles are really showing, it's going to be Florida that gets hit, especially that area between, the Big Bend of Florida and that, Tampa area. But then a lot of the models kind of get really uncertain of exactly where it's going to be after that, what's going to happen with it. It just, the ensembles go kind of all over the place with that. But now we have hurricane models on it. Now it's an actual system, and a lot of them are showing, this is the HAFS A model, shows it hits further north on the more towards the Big Bend, more so than Tampa, and this is showing, by Sunday night, it hits. That's pretty much what happens, and then the HAFS A is showing it staying kind of more so inland in the Carolinas, so it doesn't really intensify as much, and at some point it's gonna get absorbed by a frontal system at some point, but, this is going Sunday night, and then kind of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so it's not stalling as much as what some of the models were showing over the past couple days with this storm, so So I think we do have a better idea of what's going to happen to it, but it could still change. And so that's the HAFS A model. The winds, this is showing, 50 knots, so 60 miles an hour, maybe 65 miles an hour. Then it actually, on Sunday, it could actually really intensify, and this is showing 55 knots, possibly approaching 60 knots, so this is a 70 mile an hour tropical storm, and this is as far out as it goes. This is on the latest run, so it could have actually, yeah, it's actually, so the models are actually intensifying it a bit more, I think, and also a bit slower. So if it does have more time over the water, then it's going to have, longer to intensify, and it could try to approach hurricane intensity, because it is going over, again, this is going over the warmest water temperatures in the Gulf. And this actually does get to hurricane intensity. So this is the latest HAFS A does take it into the Big Bend of Florida, even further north as the previous run. So it has longer the water, and it does intensify into a hurricane. So a hurricane is possible with this, So it does have an opportunity to become a hurricane. And this is the HAFS B, showing even further north and west. So if these models start trending further west, this is going to become it has the potential to become a hurricane. A lot of these models, it looks like it's trending towards a run for hurricane intensity. This takes it even further west towards Tallahassee. That's very interesting. And then, if that's the case, it's probably not going to re-intensify offshore. So the thing is, there's a couple things that can happen. If this goes further east, then it doesn't intensify as much over Florida, and then it has an opportunity to intensify more off the coast of, the Carolinas. But with this, if it goes further north and west, it can intensify more as it approaches Florida in the Big Bend area, kind of like Hurricane Idalia, and then it doesn't have as much of an opportunity to re-intensify offshore again, But yeah, this is, the latest models are showing, that it does reach hurricane intensity. This is, also the HAFS B. So the latest models, as there's more information going into the models about the storm, now they are thinking, it could actually try to become a hurricane, and 70 miles an hour versus 75 miles an hour is not a huge difference, but these models are trending up. That's what it looks like, and that would make sense, because if you look at the sea surface temperatures, 31, 32, even 33 degrees Celsius with this, and then if it were to reemerge, it would be still in 27, 28, 29 degrees Celsius. This is still, mid to upper 80s, but temperatures, in the low 90s, that's pretty hot, for these water temperatures. It's above average, and this is, so this definitely has an opportunity to intensify quickly. Really, the steering with this is just that you have, basically, a big high pressure system here, so that's going to be pushing the storm kind of north and then northeast. And then you also had kind of a trough. So the trough also tries to pull this up, but then they were thinking it's going to stall because that trough kind of moves out pretty quickly. But then, and then the ridge tries to build around this. And if that had happened, or if that were to happen, that would make it completely stall. But this is showing then another kind of front tries to come down, and that could try to pull it further north, so that could keep it from just stalling completely, because if we were to do that, there'd be way too much rain, and it's already going to produce quite a bit of rain over Florida, and it's not going to be moving that fast, but it's yeah, this could bring a lot of rain if it were to slow down that much. This is showing, at least over a foot of rain, offshore South Carolina, maybe even along the coast, and even over Florida, 10 to 15 inches of rain. That's a lot of rain. So that's what's happening with this hurricane, and it looks like it goes over Florida, and this is the GFS, which was actually showing something different. So you have the hurricane models that are actually showing it goes further north and intensifies more. The GFS is showing not so much intensification, but of course the hurricane model is going to be better usually than one of these types of global models. But this is showing the GFS wants this to, reemerge after it hits Florida, and then it actually intensifies more into a pretty decent hurricane, and then it hits North Carolina, becomes an extratropical system, and that's it. But then, notice what happens. There is actually a tropical wave that's behind this, so you have another system, this right here, you even have another tropical wave behind that, but these don't really look like much of anything, but this one, watch what happens with this one. So it goes, and then it kind of forms near Jamaica, and then it really starts intensifying in the Gulf, and then smashes right into Louisiana, possibly around New Orleans, as a big hurricane. Now, that's just one model run, but, the GFS is showing something happening with a storm behind the one we have right now. So behind potential Tropical Cyclone 4, which will become Tropical Storm Debby if it gets a name, and they're showing another system forming behind that, also intensifying. So, we'll see what they do with that one, but we have potential Tropical Cyclone 4. It's going to become potentially Tropical Storm Debby, over the next day or so. Then we also have the Atlantic is heating up, and we also have the Pacific heating up. And so we have Hurricane Carlotta. This is the first hurricane in the eastern Pacific. It's moving west at 14 miles an hour. Winds are 85 miles an hour. And two other disturbances. This one, 50% chance of forming, and this one has a 50 to 90% chance of forming. This one could have... previous models are showing it intensifying a lot, like the GFS was taking it to Cat 4 intensity. I don't think that will necessarily happen, but this is Carlotta, actually. You have satellite image of Carlotta, and it's just going west, so it's not going to do anything. None of these Pacific storms really usually affect land at all. Most of the time, they don't. And basically this is showing, Carlotta just keeps going west, and then you have this big disturbance. You have two storms forming at the same time, which is weird. So I think that, that, I don't know, that's kind of different. So if that happens, if you have two storms trying to form at once, that could actually, make this one storm that seems to form from that, it seems like it's really big, and so it doesn't intensify as much, or doesn't have as much time to intensify, and it does intensify down to maybe a Cat 3, but then it fades out, and then you have some other weak activity after that, but, not much with that. We'll see what that does. This is the halves A with this 96E. It doesn't really do anything, and even if it does, all the East Pacific storms most of the time are fish storms, but all this activity does line up pretty good with the MJO and everything like that. You have August 4th, weekly favorable conditions over the Eastern Pacific, neutral over the Atlantic, and then it starts getting favorable over both the Pacific and the Atlantic for August 7th, August 12th, August 17th, and then as we go towards later August, it's showing neutral to slightly unfavorable, but then it's just neutral even going into September. So I think, which is the peak of hurricane season in September. So even with neutral conditions, I think there should be a lot of activity, even though it looks unfavorable over Africa. So that's maybe showing, fewer tropical waves, but we'll see. It should be heating up, and it's like as soon as you go to August 1st, it really does start to get more active in the Atlantic. Okay, this is the HAFS-A model. Another look at the HAFS-A model for potential tropical cyclone 4. And yeah, small area of hurricane force winds. If this stays over water long enough, it probably won't take that long for this to become a hurricane over 90-degree water temperatures. Definitely. So, yeah. So we have a potential hurricane approaching Florida. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button, share the video, comment below, and please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already for more weather information. Extreme Weather Zone out.